Hello and welcome to Enquire to Choir. My name is Eva and I'm here to help you, fellow choir people. It's all about the motivation, right? If you want to do something right, we need to be motivated. And as choir directors, you probably know that things are much easier with your choir singers if they are motivated. We always talk about having singers in the choir, how to deal with them, how to work with them, how to work on music, but you can get a really big sense of not getting there because people are not motivated enough. I understand the frustration when it comes to motivation and motivating your choir members, because sometimes I really do feel like I have to take care of certain singers' needs, which is not in my job description. Why should I think about them being motivated if they want to be in the choir and it is expected of them to do their work as choir singers, no matter the motivation, no matter the time, no matter the circumstances? But unfortunately, it is true that it is the choir directors and the choir management's job to think about the choir singer's motivation, and there are things you can do to improve them feeling motivated to be in the choir and do their best. This is not the first time I've done a video about this here on the channel, but the first one was a very long time ago, and I do stand by that video, but there are certain things I've learned I wanted to share because I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's that simple anymore. It never was, but now it clicked. So this is why I wanted to address this again, and I hope you find this video helpful. I changed my approach to my choir members being motivated because I always thought that I had to, be an animator. I have to be very funny, I have to be very charming, I have to give them a lot, I have to joke, I have to be, someone they want to talk to, I need to be close to them, to have them. And I do want to feel a connection with my choir members. I think it's very important, but I understand now that it doesn't have to work like that, because mostly we're talking about grown-ups and they have other priorities than for someone to be likable. They understand that not every rehearsal and concert should be the biggest achievement or the biggest, inspiration all the time, because life doesn't work like that. I mean, not every day is an amazing day. Not every day is a perfect moment of being alive. So it doesn't have to work like that when it comes to choirs. The first, and I think the biggest motivation, is to make every rehearsal count. I know you're probably struggling with rehearsal attendance if you don't have a mechanism to make it mandatory, especially if you're working with amateur choir singers. I think the biggest motivation for everyone to come to the rehearsal is to see that every rehearsal counts, for the choir singers to feel like their time was well spent during the rehearsal. That means that the rehearsal is really well planned, it's really efficient, they don't have a lot of empty space when it comes to the rehearsal timing. They don't have to wait a long time for singing their part and stuff like that. But I also mean, don't be late for the rehearsal. Don't make them wait for you. Don't make them feel like out of the 2 hours for the rehearsal, 1 hour would suffice because of the amount of work you've done. Of course, there are a lot of different types of rehearsals. Not every rehearsal has the same purpose, so it's not as easy to achieve that every rehearsal is really, really, really efficient. But I think it's important for the choir singers that they see it's not in vain that they are there. So if the 2-hour rehearsal is spent 1 hour talking, that's not a very efficient rehearsal, especially for grown-ups who have a whole life to live. Them feeling like coming to the rehearsal was a waste of time because they didn't do much, I think that's a problem. That's something that will deflate the motivation. So yeah, my first advice would be make every rehearsal count. Make them see that you care, that all the amount of work is planned, and it's not the same if they were there at the rehearsal or not. Connected to that is advice number 2. Don't make your choir singers feel like they're always stuck in the same place. Meaning, If you're reading, for example, a new score and it's a difficult score and you've spent 4 rehearsals of reading that score, after 4 rehearsals, they will feel like, oh my God, we're stuck. We're not making any progress. This is completely useless. I don't have to be there for the rehearsals. I don't even have to try because nothing is working. Or if they keep repeating the same songs, they keep having the same program, the same repertoire, the same kind of repertoire, nothing ever changes. The routine is always the same and everything became predictable. People need variety, and especially when it comes to the rehearsals. I know we all have things we have to do every rehearsal. We all have our deadlines. If we want to have a performance, we need to have the repertoire ready, and the repertoire has to be a certain repertoire, and you have to take the time at rehearsals to do everything. But you can plan your rehearsals in a way they are more interesting than the regular rehearsals. If you have to spend the time to read a very long music score, you don't have to spend the whole rehearsal reading it. You can spend at least some amount of the score performing it, singing it through. That way they will not feel like they're always stuck in the same place, that they're not moving forward. If something becomes really predictable, we tend to lose motivation because everything is known and nothing is new. So bringing a new song, bringing a very fun song, bringing a very contrasting song to make things a little bit less stuck, I think it's a good way to go. You have to show the progress. If they feel like they are making progress, they will want to be there again. If they get the opportunity to really recognize that they're really making progress, then they will want to stay and see how far they can go. That means that you have to give the opportunity during the rehearsals for them to recognize how far they've come. That means repeating certain things from the past. That means doing a new piece that was once really difficult, but now it makes perfect sense and it's easier. Or, as I mentioned, if you read a new score, just take a small part and try to perfect it for them to realize that they are actually making progress with the piece. Also, again, I know that you have a certain repertoire you have to perform and not everything is eligible for the repertoire, but I really do feel like there should be a variety of repertoire. If all the songs are the same difficulty, the same character, the same composer, the same purpose, the same old, then they can feel like they're not making progress, even though they are, because they sing beautifully probably. But if everything is the same and the repertoire is really predictable, I don't know, I think I can see that becomes a really big problem, because if you have to sing something that you're not passionate about, and it's okay for a month to 6, but after a year it becomes really like, I think that puts the motivation down. I don't want you to feel that you have to be, really careful about everything, but there are certain things you can do when it comes to choosing the repertoire, when it comes to showing the progress for your choir members to feel like they're actually doing well. Which brings me to advice number 5, have performances. I know this sounds really simple because not every choir has an opportunity for a performance, but it doesn't have to be a really big performance. It doesn't have to be a very big scale performance. It doesn't have to even be in front of a huge audience. Performances are important because if you sing in a choir, you want to be heard and seen. It's not a bad thing, I mean, we all love singing if we sing in a choir, but at a certain point, you want people to hear you. You want people to be able to see what it's all about. And if a choir singer keeps telling their friends, I sing in a choir, eventually that choir singer will want to show the choir to their friends. Also, performances are a very big component when it comes to showing the progress. It's a point of evaluation. evaluation, every performance. It doesn't have to be big. Time flies differently when you're performing. You don't have the luxury of just stopping and making things better and then repeating. You just have to go through it from the beginning to the end. Having a sense of we've managed to sing it through from the beginning to the end and somebody recognized our effort, that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. So I think it's important to have performances. It doesn't have to be perfectly well rehearsed in order for your choir to have a performance. Let me tell you, it will never be perfect. You have to practice it to a certain degree, but for some performances, good enough is good enough. So don't be afraid of having performances just because you don't want to expose your choir. My firm belief is performances make a difference. And if you keep your choir in a room throughout their life, that's not a very well equipped choir. Which brings me to advice number 6 connected to that. I think it's very good to have a goal performance. Hear me out. If you have a season, a concert season, you have performances, you have rehearsals, but I think if you're able, it would be a very good idea if you manage to have a certain goal performance. It doesn't have to be very big, it doesn't have to be a huge scale, but it can be bigger than other performances in a certain way. More repertoire, more people in the audience, the stakes are a bit higher. It's a trip, you have to make a trip to go for that performance, or you have to practice a really long time because the goal performance is at the end of the concert season, so you have the time to practice a bigger repertoire. It makes people feel more motivated if they have a goal set for them. And the motivation for the performance brings the motivation up when it comes to the choir in general. All of these things combined are really a way of putting importance on the community factor. The sense of community in choirs is very important. You know that if you've ever sung in a choir. People talk, people meet, people feel their energies, people sing along with each other, they're not isolated. So if they have a good bunch of people around them who are connected, who talk to each other, and who you can approach with your communication desires, that brings the whole choir in a better place. People will feel more motivated to come to the rehearsal if they know they will see certain people. And to have that sense of community, you have to have the opportunities to hang out. So having a cup of coffee together after the rehearsal, or having a meeting, a choir meeting where every choir member can express their views of certain things, bringing the communication channels up to speed to improve communication in general in the choir. Going on trips together, celebrating things together, having the time after the performance to hang out, to talk about the performance, to celebrate all the wins. Yeah, that is very important. And you as a choir director are a part of that community. So if you just take it as a job, if you just be there at the rehearsal and leave and be there for the performance and then leave, it's not a sense of community. People will feel rejected. I know it's not fair that you as a choir director have to take care of their emotional needs. I know, trust me, I know how frustrating that can be because it's sometimes too much, but there is a healthy way to do it, And if you're working with a choir, I hope that you at least appreciate the people in the choir. You don't have to be grateful, but you can be appreciative. So I think the energy of connection comes also from the choir director. So this sense of community is very important. And if people feel comfortable, if people feel safe, if people feel seen in the choir, they're much more motivated to stay in the choir and to do their best because they're doing something for the community. Advice number 8, as a choir director, be understanding. Of course, up to a certain point, there should be rules, but when it comes to, somebody being late or somebody not being able to make it to the rehearsal and them approaching you and saying, listen, I'm not able to make it, I feel really bad. Your reaction, if it's a bit more understanding, it would come a long way, because stuff happens. We all have our lives and people do not want to not be there. It's because life happens. So if your reaction is always very negative, very frustrated, very guilting the person who is telling you something, that's really unmotivating. I mean, people don't like to be judged, or people don't want to be told off. So if it's something that is manageable, if the information you get is not that big of a deal, just being understanding about certain things goes a long way. This is always a controversial one, but I really see only benefits of this advice, and I practice it all of the time in different amount, but all of the time. Let your choir singers choose the repertoire, at least some repertoire. This could go in a lot of different directions. For example, sometimes I choose the theme for the concert and tell them, you give your suggestions. I will give you 2 weeks to give all of the suggestions, and then I will pick the repertoire from your songs. Of course, there is a risk that comes with that, but if you give a certain amount of direction when it comes to the possible repertoire, then they will not go off key that badly. And of course, you have the veto power, so you can choose things that work for everyone. If they sing something they want to sing, they will immediately feel motivated, and they will feel like they are being listened to, that they're not just a number in the choir. You cannot do that all of the time, and probably for some choir directors is easier than for others. I acknowledge that. But if you have the opportunity, even one song to be chosen by the choir, then you will get to know your choir better, and you will feel more connected to your choir, and you will probably see the motivation go up. And finally, I know this will sound a bit cheesy, but I stand by it. If you have certain choir traditions, I think that makes the whole group feel better and more motivated. For example, if you know that a choir member has a birthday, and the tradition is for the choir to sing them happy birthday, that's a tradition that's very simple, but it brings the sense of community and brings the motivation up, because it's really nice to feel that you are appreciated. Or if there is a certain way to celebrate certain holidays, or a certain way to end the concert season, make them a part of it. Ask them what they want and make certain things traditions. I don't think it's an illusion to feel like a choir is a type of a family. It doesn't have to be a very warm family, but you are in it together. So the motivation, the extra effort comes from something probably really not connected to music. So that is my take on what you can do when it comes to their motivation. Of course, the whole channel is dedicated to how to work with choir people, so I hope you find something helpful. But for now, these 10 advice are the gist of what I do when it comes to their motivation, because I think it's really important to work on that. It makes a difference. Honestly, it makes me feel better when I work with people who want to be there. I would rather work with 30 motivated people than 60 people who are just obligated to be there. So I hope you find this video helpful. If there are any other advice, please let me know down in the comments. And thank you for watching. Conduct well, conductors, and I'll see you next time. Bye!